Are you building a business, feeling the stress of all the pressures on you, and hungry to learn from other entrepreneurs? Then you're in the right place. You're listening to But First Principles, where we highlight the principles you need to win both at work and at life. Let's dive in. All right. Well, I am super excited because a lot of my own personal development journey started with fitness, and I've got two amazing guests this afternoon. David and Melissa Ambrose of Metafit RX. And welcome to the show. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. So usually I just like to kick off with a little bit of a personal story. Like, can you tell kind of, and with both of you here, however you want to play off each other or share stories, w- basically, what do you guys do? How did you get here? Like a little bit of a personal story, sort of timeline, in a nutshell.
Yeah, so we kind of got here because what we do now is basically what I did in graduate school.
Okay.
So I'm a clinical exercise physiologist. I went to school specifically for exercise physiology. I worked with a ton of athletes in school. That's mostly what we did was working with elite athletes. And then after graduation, this didn't come about for a while. I finally started doing it again about 10 years ago for another company, and then just decided we need to be doing this on our own. We can do
Yeah.
this better. There's a different way I want to do it. So I kind of started off solo, just kind of piecemealing this thing together, just randomly buying equipment and kind of integrating that in when I was personal training or when we were doing whatever. Somehow through marriage, kids, and starting our own business, probably within 2 years of me doing this by myself was when I finally convinced him to come on board because I'm very clinical, I'm very black and white, I do the data. And what I learned very quickly was none of that matters if you don't actually put it into practice. And then that's where he came on board with his background and his experience. So I'm the clinical side, I'm the science side, I'm the lab side, and then he's the behavior side.
Yeah, the feelings.
The feelings, yes. I have no feelings. He has all the feelings. So
That's great.
let him tell you about his background.
Yeah.
Yes, you take an application of what she did in graduate school and what I did, and mine came on the behavioral side. So while I have overlap with exercise physiology, the I only had a couple courses graduate level in that, but mine were mostly behavior. So it's more about sleep, diet, stress, and exercise. Those four health behaviors in particular, and then a lot of courses on nutrition. So that's where you combine clinical black and white data and apply it to very complex, nuanced, gray people to apply it to a working mom who's a partner at a big law firm and got three kids and has no time to even legitimately has no time to get in a couple hours a day to or even an hour a day for herself. So how do you get someone to move the needle, especially as they move into that 40 plus category, which is probably 90% of our demographic that walks in the door, 90, 40
So
plus.
we fought it for a while, but then eventually it was like, nope, we're just one of those husband wife couple
Yeah.
slash business. So here we
Yeah,
are.
we had a good complementary skill set.
Yeah, it's
So
worked.
yeah,
So
Okay, so that's awesome, and I mean, I just see all over the place where there's like a yin and yang in reality, right?
yeah.
And there's just like the two sides of the coin, that you've got to balance out. And David, looks like you wanted to jump in, like immediately you thought of something there.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
no, we're that's the thing. We very much complement each other skill set wise, but belief wise, we're 100% lockstep.
right.
yeah,
So
Our
skill
skill sets
wise,
are
we're
very
very
different.
different. And the things that she can't stand are the things that I love, and things I love, she can't, and the things I can't stand, she loves. So, but we very much, as far as belief, ethics, morals, values, 100% lockstep. And I think that's really, really important, whether
yeah,
it's in business or in a couple. If you don't have those values together, it's very so anytime something happens, there is no wondering how are we going to react. We react the same way, right? There's never whether it's the business or kids, we're lockstep. So I think that's
man,
really
that's
important.
that's phenomenal. Okay, so like
Yeah.
I get excited as a coach about some things
Yeah.
that people say, and that's one of them because like I love vision, mission, value statements.
Yeah.
But it's actually not the statements themselves because if it's just a platitude on the wall, ugh,
Right.
like somebody kill me, like, or
Right.
maybe I shouldn't say it quite like that, but you know what I mean? Like it kills me. Um, but like really getting into, your heart and your soul and your psyche of like, what are the things that we can agree on that's the core that holds together as you pivot and as you figure out like market changes or that, like you go off and, you know, uh, into a new market or whatever, right? Um, exactly. Like there has to be this core principles
Right.
that
Yeah.
everyone in
Yeah.
the business agrees on. Well, I say there has to be. That's what really makes for a healthy organization is when
Right.
there is that core.
Yeah.
Um, so I mean, so I love the clarity on that, for you, David, that you wanted to jump in and say, whoa, 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 wait, but there's still this unifying
Right.
Yeah, there's
factor.
Yeah.
more.
Because yeah, that whole thing of opposites attract, I actually don't think I
We have
think
opposite skill
the
sets,
opposite skill sets
but
attract, but
yeah.
opposite personalities, I think, it's a different story. Like we're real simple. We're evidence-based. We're clinical. If there's not, people say, what's your opinion? My answer oftentimes, well, it depends, right? So it's very nuanced. And while you do have black and whites overall, things are very gray. Evidence-based is super important to us. Fads, quick fixes, we just don't get into. And
Mm.
you see it's very prominent, particularly in you almost to say the big wellness, right? I would say is ironically a lot bigger than big pharma. So you see a lot of trends and quick fixes being sold, and the blunt reality is anything sustainable or really efficacious is not that. And we have to battle that all the time. And we may lose some business, but I think we gain 100-fold in business by not
Mhm.
being that way.
Man, and that's
So
to me actually that's exactly what first principles means. That's
yeah,
literally like what I mean is like sustainable transformation really
right,
comes from getting to what's not treating the symptoms, not doing the quick fix, not doing the, cool trending thing in business and in life, but
right,
getting to what are the things that work every time. And then also the application that is going to vary depending on, yes, your life circumstances and your personality and,
right,
and in your case like metabolism, but like, with the business, it's going to depend on like the people who are involved. Like there's a kind of personality, aggregate, that you can't apply every principle based on those factors, right?
right,
um or that you can't apply them uniformly. Like they can be applied, but there's a lot of gray, there's a lot of nuance, there's a lot of, messiness with that.
right,
So I love that because that's man, you're singing my song, like that's I'm all about it. Yeah, okay, so that's what you guys are about in a nutshell. Um, what maybe is there more of a story there? Like what were you doing? Um, I know there's more of a story.
There's a story. She used to be my boss. That's what it comes down to. All right.
I was his direct supervisor when we were both partners.
Yes.
Uh, yeah. So
And
Okay.
yeah, was that.
That's
yeah.
So
And then, like I said, marriage and 2 kids later, here we
yeah,
are.
yeah.
So,
HR department, here we come. I mean,
yeah. People started noticing that he didn't have to come to the
no,
meetings.
no, no.
So,
Not true.
so
that's
But
great.
yeah, but
Well,
like
okay,
I
so
said,
you guys,
we
yeah.
didn't really get into business together until recently.
well, ironically, started buying this equipment and
I didn't even ask him. I was like, hey, I'm just
right.
just doing this.
She bought this equipment and guess when she bought it? January 20.
January 2020.
And
So,
then
yeah,
3 months later, the whole world shuts down. So
yeah.
I had to pivot out of fitness for a while because of the pandemic and didn't really know what I was going to do. And in my 40s, I'm like, this is awful now. So, and I've always been very entrepreneurial. So it's took us a long time. And lo and behold, what I needed was a boss. I needed someone that had
I'm still the boss.
the organizational skills and that type A strong leader personality that I don't,
I had to wrangle him in with direction.
yeah. It's 'cause I'm chaos, right? She always calls me
Yeah, yeah.
chaos.
Even though we've pivoted directions
Yeah.
several times, I've at least gotten
She
us.
can always organize it, right? She's doing the bookkeeping, I'm doing all the meetings,
Yeah.
right? So
I call him, he's our social butterfly. I do
yeah,
everything on the back end.
yeah. I'll talk to
100%.
somebody I've never met in my entire life for 3 hours on the corner,
And I keep up
right?
with our QuickBooks.
Right. So yeah, she'll get you the QuickBooks. So it's and you need both personalities, I think, to do what we do. So in a clinical, you have a human feel to a clinical diagnostic test, right? Because it can be really encouraging or discouraging depending on your result. And now finding the good things in your test results are what we want to harp on. And how can we look at the behavioral mindset to really, it's really the mindset shift, and not that, 30, if once I see 30 pounds in 30 days, any promise, I immediately cringe. Any promise of X amount of weight in X amount of days, I cringe. I just don't like it. Not just
Mm,
not possible, it's just not sustainable,
hmm
right? And I think way we complement really well is that way. So
hmm. And so when you were buying equipment, Melissa, and starting out, David, what
she
were you
kind of,
doing? You like what? Yeah.
oh, I was just like doing virtual personal training at the time.
Ah,
And then
okay.
We were both just kind of in and out of personal training for
yeah,
years.
and I
Yeah.
got a little bit into the finance world, which was kind of ironic for me, considering like my punk
I had
anarchist
had a couple
background.
different jobs doing like fitness directorship,
Yeah.
or fitness manager or whatever, really just anything to kind of keep us afloat, honestly.
Yep.
Um,
So
I
definitely
felt like,
entrepreneurs. So
Oh yeah.
whatever could keep you going. And so
right.
this kind of side hustle though became like, hey, we could really
Yes.
make something out of this.
Yeah,
And
eventually I was like, let's just do it. Like, here we go. We're just going to take the plunge. And I quit doing anything else. And then within a year, you did too. So,
Yeah. I
yeah,
mean, I saw her vision and I came up with a name
you
and
did.
and
he's reminded me of that several times on our, when we had
I'm
a conversation.
sure. Sure.
she wanted to call it like fitness and nutrition testing or something like
I don't even remember what I called it. Doesn't
So
matter.
but
boring.
yeah, it was
I wanted to
Oh
call it
man.
metabolic fitness prescriptions or something. And that's where
Fit
Metafit RX
RX.
came
Okay,
from.
there you
Yeah, because
go.
that was just way too long, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
But it was the need, I think what we saw was the need for this to be done in a way that nobody else is doing it,
hmm
right? Because we knew about, again, DEXA scans, VO2 max testing, metabolic testing for metabolism, but no one we'd seen had done it the way we thought it could be done or should be done. And even us, we've pivoted numerous times from how we started. But overall, the idea was there, and now we've had many iterations to where we've really hit a groove now, and we know our identity, and now we're looking at phase two
We
of
know
what we're
our
doing.
target
We know our
market.
target market. We
Yeah.
know who's coming to see us. We know who to attract and who to talk to.
Awesome. And okay, and I would love to talk about the getting to that point. So,
Yeah.
you know, you started the business, right? Took about a year for David to get on board, but then you guys were like, all right, let's do this. We're committed full
I was doing
bore.
sales from day one with you, though. I
Yeah.
was always
Yeah,
because
you were.
even when I did the financial stuff, people are like, "Are you in fitness or finance?" Because the way I would talk about finance would be the way I talk about fitness. But I look at fitness, physical fitness, emotional, mental, and financial as the most important components of wellness.
I love
And
that.
that's
Yeah.
where the financial part came in for me was to get personal knowledge.
Yeah.
And so that's where we combine all three. And not us, but I'm saying I think those are really important components of well-being.
Yeah. So I saw you're helping out the whole time, and
Right.
actually, I'm gonna riff on that just a little bit. So, like, I like to say I'm a business coach as an excuse to be a life coach because
Yeah.
exactly what you're describing. Because I care about the person and
Right.
like thriving. And if you own a business, usually it just becomes such a high priority. Everything else gets drowned out.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
And so like to open up a space in your life takes a twofold effort, both getting the business under control, getting the right people in place, setting up systems so that people can run it other than you, getting it out of your head, right? Not, into SOPs and that kind of thing. But then there's the other part of that is then like all the behavioral stuff that you've done and you do, right? Of okay, well now what else is important to you and how do you create first of all habit design, like what are the doable things that you can start to establish and what are the motivators, what are the things you're going to associate that with, tie that to so that you actually follow through with your, grand
Right.
plans, right? So yes, I mean like I really care about people's wellness to speak about it that way and the legacy and the impact they have in their life and the purpose they live out. But business for a business owner, that's such a big piece that really needs to get under control in order to make space for all the other things, right? So yeah, similar to finances, like you can't really pursue fitness in many ways, at a high level if you're drowning in debt or
Absolutely.
if you don't, if you're, living paycheck to paycheck, right? So
Right.
makes sense.
Yeah.
They're
Fundamental
interconnected.
needs have to be met first, right? Housing, clothing, food, you know, yeah, really basics. Yeah.
All that. Anyway, but that's a little bit of an aside. What What was it? What would you guys start doing to start out like during that period when you're trying to figure yourselves out, figure out your identity, figure out the marketing?
Yeah, I would say so. In the beginning, I had spent a couple years semi doing what I do now for somebody else. And I learned very quickly that the average population really just didn't care,
Yeah.
about the science or about the credentials or about the anything. So when I started doing this on my own and when I brought David in, originally our thought process was this is going to be for athletes because that's also who I tested. In my
Yep,
graduate degree, we
makes sense.
tested elite athletes. So I'm like, athletes love the data. They're going to love this stuff. Bodybuilders, they're going to love the composition. So I had it in my head that it was going to be people who were kind of already in shape or already into this lifestyle, and that I wasn't going to have to do anything but open up and they were going to flock to us, right? Like that,
Of course.
that was just kind of my mentality.
Yeah.
And it didn't happen at all. And,
Like, wow.
yeah. And so we kind of
Yeah.
really quickly learned that, people who are already in shape or people who are already into this, yeah, they think it's cool. It's maybe
It
fun data for them.
helps improve
It
their
helps them
performance.
improve
Yeah.
their performance, but it wasn't really necessary. And so we kind of learned, it took a little while, but we started to learn that, oh, it's the 45-year-old mom who's entering perimenopause and who has 3 kids, and now her health is piling up because she hasn't done anything for herself in the last 20 years, or it's the high executive male who drinks a lot, never sleeps, has high stress. Like that's kind of who started to come in.
Yeah.
And so we really pivoted to that. Like those were the people that needed help, not the athletes, right? And the athletes, it's so much fun to test an athlete. I love when they come in, they nerd out on the data with us. But the benefit that we give to somebody else who's either just starting in their journey or doesn't understand their body or doesn't know where to go, that's what we landed on. And again, it took us a little while because that's not what I did in school. I wasn't working with your average person. I was working with athletes. So that's what I thought was going to happen. But just the everyday person who wants to be healthier, they're either on medication or they've got health problems or they're too busy or they don't know what to do. Like that's really kind of been our bread and butter. And that's been the one that has been so rewarding to help because the light bulbs come on and they start to learn about their body and they start to understand what they're doing and kind of start to give them hope a little bit. And like David said earlier, teaching them that it's actually really not that complicated. You
Yeah.
need to learn your body, and then there's some simple rules that we're going to do to fix it. So, yeah, we started with the athletes thinking that they were just going to flock to us and life was going to be good and I wasn't going to have to do anything. And that didn't happen at all.
Yeah.
And so we completely pivoted to longevity and health and just kind of general weight loss, which is just, unfortunately where we're at as a society, as far as, the system is just against everybody. And we're just trying to make your average person a little bit healthier. And that's kind of how we ended up getting, it was just an accident, but, we figured out that these guys aren't coming to see us. They didn't care. We would go to events and we would go to all these places with athletes and nothing.
Yeah.
And so, and that's why I had started off very sciencey because I thought that the athletes, they understand this language and they're going to care. And they did not.
Yeah.
And so now I'm not allowed to say science words to people. I'm not allowed to be too sciencey. I have to I don't want to say dumb it down, but I have to speak in a way that resonates with their feelings, right? Those pain points. What are they trying to do? What are they trying to achieve? What are their barriers? That was a huge pivot for me because I didn't typically speak that way in the lab, and that's not how I advertise, and that wasn't what I knew. So I had to take everything that I knew and kind of reconfigure it and restructure it to how are we going to help your everyday person just live their best life.
Yeah. And we got lucky too with sort of the recent big, I don't want to say fad, but good
push
into longevity.
Yeah.
Now, Peter Attia, the well-known MD podcaster, we've been just insanely lucky. He puts out a book called Outlive, and all of a sudden people are calling us, hey, I see you do DEXA scan. Peter Attia talks about this. I see you do VO2 max, Peter. And oh, do you do what Peter Attia does? Well, actually, this was actually what we've been doing, and her in particular, for at that point, over 15 years, a long time. And it just happened to correlate with a recent surge into people wanting to not just have a better lifespan, but improve, or as we say, optimize your health span. So
Yeah.
we've been very lucky in that way, and we couldn't have really better timing to come into this space, and not come into it, be into it for 5 years now, and be really thriving with
Yeah.
what we're doing.
And we even went as far as, we start talking about your lean mass and your VO2 max as biomarkers.
Yeah.
You should know those the same way you should know your
Yeah.
cholesterol or
Right.
your blood pressure.
Right.
And so we had kind of figured out that market before that boom happened, and it kind of happened right after we figured out that market. So we were already well positioned to be
Yeah.
able to serve the people who were coming in for longevity, not just weight loss, but they want to live longer, they want to live healthier, they want to optimize, their health span.
Yeah. And that's where that middle age, the generation that has young kids and aging parents that you see now, and they're also in the pinnacle or near the upper part of their career.
Mhm.
So they're most stressed, most financially lucrative, but also no time at all. And now you're seeing their health is what slips. So I mentioned about the financial, mental, emotional, and physical wellness. I worked with tons of high-end executives in DC, and these guys had money out the wazoo, but mentally
No
they
time.
felt great.
Right.
But I can tell you physically, it broke a lot of them because of you don't earn that money without really sacrificing your time and your health, right? So that's where you see the need for all three, and where longevity is now really taken over, because money can't buy your life back, so you just the way someone builds a business, you have to do it through hard work. There is no quick fix, there is no substitute.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, I just see all kinds of parallels with what I do and what you guys do.
Yeah, it's a lot of complementary fields of what we do. So that's why I can always give metaphors for what you're doing, and it sounds like you do the same. But it's so easy to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's so easy to do in the sense of like draw the parallels, or you mean
Yeah,
like
yeah.
and yeah,
Oh, yeah,
exactly.
no, it's very hard to do, but the
Yeah,
parallels
exactly. I'm
are
like, what are you
yeah.
saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
actually,
You give a relatable metaphor so someone
yeah,
can understand in their lexicon. Like an attorney went to school for 3 years, right? So I want to lose 50 pounds this month. I'm like, how long did you go to school for, right? You went to school for 3 years, right? And it wasn't, you imagine if you put 3 years of law school into a 6-month program, how good would that outcome be? Or a medical program. You'd be an awful doctor, right?
yeah,
Right? Maybe you could somehow pass the boards, or pass the board, and become an MD or a physician, or become an attorney and pass the bar. But you're going to be really crappy at what you do, right? And the
right,
results will not be sustainable. So,
yeah. Okay, so just keep unpacking this. Like,
yep.
there's two questions in my mind, and actually, I'll just put these up there, and you guys choose which one you'd like to answer first. So my first question would be, what is it? Just tell us what you do and what's like sort of the transformation, the result. That's one, and I know it's taken a while to really refine that. And the second question that's in my mind is, um, when was the tipping point, and sort of what transpired to get you to tipping point where you can confidently say you're growing, you've got your market, you can sustain this. Because again, we had a conversation before, and there was definitely some years where it was pretty tough, right?
Yeah.
And I want to encourage the audience that like this is part of being an entrepreneur, that there's going to be ups and downs, and there's going to be like, I don't really, this might not work out, right?
Right.
There's going to be those
Oh, yeah.
moments. So those are the two questions. Like, what do you do now? How do you describe that? And also, like, what was the tipping point? What got you to the tipping point where really you're on a growth trajectory, firmly? So,
Yeah,
which one should we go with first?
say, well, the tipping point to me is the easiest and the quickest one to answer. I would
Cool.
say the minute that physicians wanted to partner with us, that's when I was like, we've got it.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
doing this properly. When physicians and concierge medicine practice and people who wanted to integrate this type of stuff into health and into
Their annual physical.
annual physicals, or so
Nice.
we were
Healthcare.
medical adjacent, like that's
Yeah.
in my mind when I was like, that's it, we've got it. And I would say ever since then, we've been solid.
Yeah.
Like we knew we had the product down when everybody else all of a sudden wanted to start partnering with us and using us and collaborating with us. And that to me was like, we've been nonstop ever since. That was kind of the go point to me.
Yeah, we probably have over a dozen local providers that are talking to us about partnering and using us as their lab.
And we knew,
currently.
I mean, we didn't know, we were hoping it would happen, and then all of a sudden we had like that big break. And that was just ever since then, I don't want to say it's been smooth sailing, but ever since then we've been on a much, not just a trajectory
Better.
that has
Yeah.
been in the right direction.
Yeah, it's been so easy. I mean, people walk in, it says Partner MD and Metafit RX on the door.
Right.
It's so easy. And then, they're sending us,
And we've integrated in with
yeah,
registered dietitians and physical
and
therapists and
personal
other, like, and
trainers, and
so
yeah,
that's when I knew. I was like, huh, we've made it.
yeah. And we get physician referrals from
Yeah.
from Virginia Beach, from Charlottesville, from Fredericksburg, from Williamsburg, from all over. So yeah.
Yeah, and then as far as the what do we do? We call ourselves the Richmond's only weight loss, longevity, and performance lab. Really, what we specialize in is DEXA scans for body composition, and that is the gold standard for your body composition. That's looking at your bone mineral density, your lean mass or your fat-free mass, and then your body fat percentage. We also do what's called resting metabolic rate assessments, and this looks at two things. This looks at the speed and the function of your metabolism. So the speed of your metabolism is how many calories your body burns at rest in a 24-hour period if you lay in bed and do nothing, right? So if you don't move, what do you burn? That's considered your baseline metabolic rate. The other thing we look at is, of those calories, what are you burning? Are you burning mostly carbohydrates, or are you burning mostly fat? And then where that falls, we have a conversation that helps dictate your nutrition with a combination of the DEXA and the RMR. That's how we come up with nutrition for people. So we get their calories, we use their lean mass for their protein. We have this whole system. And then the VO2 max is the third assessment, the big one that we offer.
Right.
There's so much that goes into that one. So, your actual VO2 max is a normative data standard, just how healthy are your heart and lungs. That's a mortality, standard. That's one of the longevity markers. We also take a closer look at how well and when your body burns fat versus when it burns carbohydrates. And then we teach you why you should care and how you should use that, and why this stuff matters. And so those are the big three that people often will do together. You can kind of a la carte them. That's really our starting point. And then based on that stuff, we come up with fitness and nutrition, or I hand them off to him for behavior. Based on those assessments, that's how we, roll into whatever it is you're trying to work on, whatever your goal is. Yeah, those are the big three that we do. That's our core products.
And the way to summarize it, how to eat, how to move, and is it working?
Yeah.
That's the most succinct way to say it, are those three. The only problem with saying that is it leaves out all that higher level detail. So people, like, when I say that, like, oh, you're a personal trainer, we're just like, no, it's like, like people, that's the reason why we do get a bit more technical with the lexicon, because people say that, and it's nothing against personal trainers. It's just the idea is personal trainers send us their clients, so we help improve what they do, right? We improve the patient and client experience for so many people in the area is what we do. We give better, deeper data to improve their patient and client outcomes, right? That's really the layman's way to put it. But again, describing it to a normal person is, we help moms and dads feel better and move better. Like, but again, you miss so much nuance that.
I was going to say another tipping point is it's actually been a while since we've been called personal trainers. People
Yeah.
used, and again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not what we do.
Right.
People used to
Yeah, we've both
confuse
done it
us with
before.
that.
Yeah.
Right. We were personal trainers.
Yeah.
But they don't do that anymore. And that's
Yeah.
also, in my mind, means we've made it, because
Yeah.
they look at us as the specialist now. They
Yeah.
know that I'm a clinical exercise physiologist. They know that he is a health behavior specialist. We've gotten it out there that we're different. That's not what we do. Because for a while, that was actually kind
People
of a
like, oh,
problem.
you're a personal trainer.
Everyone's like, oh, you're a personal
God.
trainer. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that's not what we do.
Like, no, your personal trainer
We help
sends
your
you to
personal
us.
trainer,
We
yeah.
help your personal.
So that was another, I think, kind of good tipping point where I was like, whew, we made it, when people
Yeah.
started figuring out that we were different.
That took a long time. Yeah, I mean, we're the only specialist here. We're one of the few in the country that we
put it together the way we do.
actually, we're probably, as far as we're aware, we're one of very, very few that put together how we do, especially with what our new program coming out. No one will be doing anything like what we're doing in the country. So
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
To be able to, know that you seriously have the edge because you do it different than anyone else.
Yeah. Specializing, like, matters. And I see this with you coaching a lot of businesses, I'm sure you see it all the time. People want to do everything. And it's like, well, when you see specialty, I think I want to see three things or less, right? and people will put down 50. I'm like, well, you don't specialize in 50 things. You may do 50 things, but you specialize in three, maybe five if you have different personnel and stuff, right? But overall, I mean, you have the three, then you have my behavioral side. So maybe that's four, right?
And that's about as technical as I'm allowed to get.
Yeah.
They reel me
The
in.
three testings, the three, but exercise physiology and health behavior. That's the two, right? And then medical is the next phase. But
Mhm.
anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
specialized
So,
is
yeah.
important.
So just to get a little bit more visceral, really, or like a little bit more emotional, like,
Yeah.
um, although not visceral fat, but the,
Yeah,
I like that.
wrong
the
visible.
I like that.
yeah, exactly. What so can you kind of just tell a little bit of a story of like maybe something you tried, something that was a really just tough moment where like you had to push through and
Uh,
have faith that it's going to work and that like it's the vision was still, you're like, yeah, I mean, you
well,
obviously from the look on your faces, you have plenty of
yeah.
stories to tell.
Yeah, I mean the biggest one, like you said, we came very, very close to going out of business.
I must have got another job full time.
I had to get another full time. Like I honestly, I thought we were going to
Wow.
close down. I had to
Yeah.
get another full-time job.
This is what, yeah.
We made some decisions that were not good.
Yeah.
And we made some very expensive mistakes.
Yeah.
And our goal was at that point, I was I was going to get another job because I had been scouted out and offered a job,
Yeah.
and
Operated.
we were kind of dying at this point. And I was like, we can't not take this job. If our business goes under, we're gonna have nothing. So
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
in a crash course, taught him to do everything as fast as I possibly could. I took this other job. He was running the business. And then within a month of that happening, we exploded. And it was like
What's happened? Yeah.
I
It
couldn't
wasn't.
have written a book better as to
Yeah.
how this whole thing went down. But all of a
So it's like
sudden,
crashing, and then
Yeah.
yes.
pulled
And
out
he
of the
always said
spin.
what do you say? We fell up. Somehow we
We
fell
felt
up.
upward. Yeah.
It was crazy, but I
Wow.
mean,
Wow.
we had to get out of a building.
We were very lucky.
We had to move all of our equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought by the end of 2023 we were going to be out of business.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden January 2024 was our biggest month ever.
Yeah.
And I still to this day, it's insane how we went from there to there, but yeah, somehow it happened. We didn't give up on it. We weren't ready to let it
He was still
die.
working. Yeah, like he was still
Still working
keeping the
it.
business alive,
I
but
had
yeah.
gotten this other job, and then all of a sudden we exploded, and he was like, "You got to come back." He's
Yeah.
like, "I
I
can't do
can't
this."
handle it. I was up till
Did
two
you put
o'clock.
it? Yeah.
2 o'clock in the morning because I'm the primary caretaker for our girls in the mornings. I do all of our food meal, like I'm in the kitchen a couple hours a day. I'm sending data at 2 a.m. Girls are in bed. I'm half asleep and I got to run testing all day tomorrow. She's working full time and
And
part
still
time with
doing
us.
testing. It was
And
crazy.
it was, I mean, the hours were kind of insane and we were just on zombie mode for a while.
I was so stressed that it was causing physiological
Yeah.
issues. Like it was unbearable for a
Yeah, it
while.
actually was. Like it got to the point where I was like, something has to give here. You're
Yeah.
physically breaking down and you're gonna break if you don't.
Yeah.
So, but we racked up 6 figures in
In
debt.
personal debt.
And,
Yeah.
or we racked up in credit card. No, my credit cards they were max. We were like
Wow.
50,000 card
So
Wow.
debt.
we were very close to going under. Very,
Yeah,
very
it
close.
was a
Yeah.
really but we were able to climb out of that hole.
Somehow,
Yeah.
yeah, it was like I said, the actual story is kind of unreal.
Yeah.
That
So yeah.
is no, and thank you for I mean, thank you for sharing that because again, like what I really hope to do is like encourage anyone who's listening, who's running a business that like it gets hard, don't give up. Like,
Yeah, I mean, we did what we had to do to keep it open.
Yeah.
I at the time didn't know how long that was going to take. I didn't know if it was ever going to take, but we weren't willing to give it up just yet. Like we had to hold on and yeah, and
well, and through
it worked
sorry,
out.
sorry, I'm getting excited, but the cutting you off. But so through that all, what is it that you feel like in retrospect, what did you do right that made you like allow you to pull out of the tailspin?
So I would say right before all of this happened, we we had gotten to the point where we had figured out the right demographic. We had figured out the right language of speaking to people. And to be quite honest with you, we just happened to test the right person. And, we tested that person in October. I took my job because we were going under. I took my job in
Yeah,
October.
that's right.
And then by December, he was like, hey guys, we want to partner with you.
Yeah, they found out that we were
but
they found out.
had we not had all of this together before we
Yeah.
tested that right person, he may have never have done that. If he
Yeah.
had come to see us and we didn't know what we were talking about and we didn't have our testing down and our deliverables weren't good, we might have never heard from him again. So we didn't know it at the time. But the fact that we had our product down, we had our language down, even though we were kind of going under, we were still solid in who we were. We just happened to get in front of the right person. And then literally at the 11th hour,
Yeah,
he pulled us out, and it was unreal. Again, I didn't know didn't know that was what was going to happen. But I think because we did everything right with him, and even though all of this was happening, we didn't let our quality slide. We didn't let our customer service slide. Like, we were still in it as though we were this super successful business, even though we weren't. He didn't know the difference. He had no idea. I mean, obviously we told him later after everything came out, but I think the fact that we maintained as though we were this super well-established business, even though we weren't, and we maintained our quality and our ethics and our everything, that's what impressed him and pulled us out ultimately. So, yeah.
I mean, it reminds me of, like, it's funny how the harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
The right things come into place because you've done all that. Like, the seeds hit
Right.
the soil because you've done all the work with the soil, and it's, fertile ground. And
had he had a bad experience that day for whatever reason, but whether it was because I showed it on my face that we were going under, or I didn't give him quality service or whatever, he might have been like, oh, done with him.
Yeah.
Instead of, hey, I want to partner with you, which is what happened.
And we got really lucky when the community found out we were in need of some help, basically needing a new home. And we had 5 different people offer for us to move into their facilities.
We had a lot of great people.
So we got really lucky. Wow. And I had spent the 3 years prior building relationships in the community. I do a lot of networking and have my own group that I run for health, fitness, and wellness providers only. And I really, really emphasize and 100% credit the community
that
in Richmond
built,
that we've built over time as to why we probably 70% of our business is referral based, maybe even more. I mean, it's a ridiculous amount that almost, if 70% of people walking in the door were referred by somebody else, it's pretty, I don't know what industry standard is across different businesses, but I would imagine it's pretty high. But it's all built upon good handshakes.
He had done such a good job getting us out there, meeting everybody, establishing us as the experts, and just, he really built that community that when we were going under, we had so many people that were ready to help us.
We got very lucky.
Yeah.
We got very lucky.
We had a lot of people. Yeah. That was actually wonderful to know that. It made us feel really good because it's like, okay, everything that went wrong, we still maintained those relationships, and that felt good, when you're going down and people are like ready to help.
Yeah. And that's why we always, do as much as we can to help others and people asking and I
had a phone call today of a woman who's trying to do what we do in Northern Virginia, and I didn't hang up on her. I spoke to her. When I was trying to put my business together, people hung up on me. Like, nobody told me how to do anything. And, the amount of time and money I wasted trying to figure out how to put stuff together. And she was just like, I can't believe you're speaking to me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm in a position to help, and it's just had somebody. It's amazing, when people help you versus when they don't. And I don't ever want to be that person that hangs up on somebody, because had anybody hung up on us, we wouldn't be here.
Well, you asked me on the call, why did we agree to come on? And I just looked at the YouTube, and I was like, this is really easy. Colin interviews local business owners. It helped that I knew, a couple people guests you had to help too. And I'm a really, really big believer in that, supporting local. And in a worst case scenario where you help somebody, what's the harm, right? A little bit of your time is gone, right? So I can't tell you, I've given away tons of time and nothing's come out of it. Like 90% of the time I've given away, but that 10% has been extremely fruitful. Do I know which 10% is good? No. So I just give it to whoever I can when I can, right? That's it.
That's exactly. I mean, and yeah, I'm really glad you agreed to get on the show, and I absolutely, the reason I work with small businesses, and it is like, actually, I think I've said this on the show before as well, that like I have peers and guys with the same background as me who are working with corporate clients, and they're charging 6 times what I charge, right?
Yeah.
Because that, like the, corporate and larger businesses can pay more. And I really want to work with small businesses, partly
Yeah.
because my dad was a small business owner who did actually close his business and then rebuilt, and saw that firsthand as a kid. But also, I mean, like, human scale and the personal relationships that you can build in small business, I think we need to recapture that. We're so used to, big box stores, nothing wrong with them, but like,
Right.
just all the things that make us look to, like, the influencers, the top 1% or whatever out there, when it's just next door neighbors that
Right.
really create, like, even just from the sense of like safety net, like that's really where, when you have a strong network and you have strong relationships, then there's resilience there.
Yeah.
And that's true in a team, in a business. When I do like culture and team, in a business, that's the cool thing about small business. You really know each other. You have real relationships, and that's resilient when you make mistakes, or you're trying to figure it out, or you're going through, growth pains, and you don't really know what you're doing because you're a small business and you're figuring it out, right? So, amen. That's all, that's all I can say. That's all I want to say about that. Okay, very cool. So we're out of time, and I think we've covered the main things. Although I want to ask you guys about some mindset questions. Maybe we'll do that in a different episode sometime. Um, but all really great information. I think it's super helpful. Is there anything else you think is worth mentioning before we wrap up?
I think that something you had asked about before was sort of our vision and what we think, uh, what we sort of see happening. And I would say that, there's a few things. One is I actually have a civil rights background also for about 10 years. So big, and Melissa and I have talked about this extensively, how we've always wanted to do what we can to help people who can't afford our services. So
Yeah,
something
yeah,
in the
yeah.
future for us, I think we'll have some sort of nonprofit arm that allows donors to pay for people who, or grants, however it may be. Would love that. If anybody in the community has ideas on that, love to see. I have some ideas myself, but sort of a pay it forward program to help get our resources into people who may not be able to otherwise afford it would be
Yeah.
fantastic, because
Mhm,
that's something we're both really passionate about.
mhm.
Um, the other part is we do believe what we do is vital to good healthcare and should be part of standard annual physicals in every physician office in the country. But the part we're bringing in next, that's sort of the area where we're kind of lacking right now, is on the MD side. So Metafit MD is coming next, with starting with blood testing, because we've been asked about it probably over 1,000 times by now. But hey, can you look at my blood results? I'm like, well, I can, but I'm not a physician. I'm not
I
I'm
can.
not qualified to
I
look
don't know
at.
what this means.
Yeah, I mean, I know a little, but I'm not able to just no, right?
It's out of our
It's
scope
not
of
our scope of
practice.
Yeah,
practice,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And
Gotcha.
we're really big on staying in your lane. So the MD will have the blood testing, hormone optimization, and GLP-1 medical weight loss, where we've seen a ton of people walking in the door, and these medications are becoming very prominent, and also testosterone. BHRT and TRT are becoming very prominent.
Mhm.
We want to do these all the right way and take RX as a foundation into MD. So we're beginning that program next. And in the next couple of months, you'll see that unveiled. So this is our first public announcement of it, just to let you know.
All
Um,
right.
hasn't
Well,
been
you hear
recorded
it.
anywhere. Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
promo. Probably put that out now.
We should. Well, let's get our start date
We'll get our
first.
start date. Probably but
See, this is where
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly. This is the wait. Let's have the plan. Let's
yeah.
like
let's get
make sure
that.
we're following the steps. But
But yeah, no,
yeah,
we've a bit more to do in that. But we
yeah,
think that will be the next step to meld that area that's lacking. It won't be primary care. It's just those certain areas, right? But
yeah.
it'll be
Testing and optimization, like what to do with the testing,
right.
the
It's that
behavioral side,
right,
right? Yeah.
exactly. That mixing of what we said, the mix of the fitness, the nutrition, the behavior, and the
And the
medical,
medical.
that we can't provide that, right? So it's that next level, for that we'll be able to provide, is we're really excited about.
And that's your vision. Yes, which yeah,
Yeah,
really important. Like, what's the next steps? What's the vision for the future? What's leveling up look like for you? And that's
yeah,
this. Metafit
Metafit MD.
Metafit MD, right?
Yeah.
And then also like to the extent possible, really democratizing or making it
Right.
as available as possible.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
We're
I mean we should
exploring
talk
other
more.
locations
Yeah, we're exploring that now. Yeah.
and expansion. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, thank you for like yes, thank you for catching me there. That's when I asked, is there anything I'm missing? That's absolutely essential. Like, what is the vision? Because that's
Yeah, that was
you
the
know
big one. I think our vision for what we see this being as, and even the way we're going to do it, we won't be in a vacuum. That's the reason why we so many provider partners, because we do what we do, but there's a lot we don't do. So we need physical therapists and personal trainers and massage therapists and mental health counselors and uh, specialists and all kinds of physician specialists. And yeah, we need, I think having a community that's strong and knowing where to send people and having that good, we're big on referring out. I mean, it's a massive part of what we do. So
yeah,
always being able to help the person who walks in our door is our number one, right? And
yeah.
that's our number one thing we want to solve.
yeah.
Help people make people healthier.
That's it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and holistic wellness.
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, so then last question I always ask is, who do you want to connect with, and how do they connect with you?
Who do you want to connect with?
What we're looking for forward-thinking people that want to look at medicine. It's been so reactionary for a long time. We want to focus more on prevention.
Mm,
I will say that while we don't work with kids, kids are the only real solution to all this as far as keeping kids healthy.
mhm.
So we want to help people wherever they are, but we do really want to take that preventative mindset. So people that are that longevity focused, that forward thinking, they want to get ahead before the cancer, before the heart disease, before
Yeah,
chronic disease sets in. It's way easier to treat and prevent. Not easier, but it's more cost effective and better to prevent than it is to have to deal with once you're in a disease state.
right.
So providers who are in that mindset, at least when I think of the provider mindset, who else has that sort of idea of keeping people healthy through a mix of movement and medicine and whatever other wellness tool they want to bring in? Is there a ideal? I would say for you, I think of connecting is the ideal demographic, and what are
Yeah.
you starting now?
Yeah, we've been inadvertently going after the perimenopause and menopausal crowd.
Yes,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and it's
There's a
been
big need.
yeah, and that's not only because I'm in it, but it's been
not better at all.
figuring out, yeah, the changes that are happening in their bodies and people they just don't understand it. And
Mhm.
we've kind of accidentally gotten that crowd, and so again, we're kind of pivoting to our research and to our offerings and to kind of helping women navigate that, and helping men understand
The men of menopause. You
what
can
it
join me,
is.
Colin.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been a really good demographic that we've kind of been able to help. And that'll also really be the MD part of that will really be helpful as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
so I think where we can probably make the biggest impact and is when you look at where can you have the biggest impact and reach is probably where do you spend the most time at home and at work, right? So employers, when you come to that forward-thinking side, ones that really want to get ahead and have that forward-thinking employee approach because their biggest expense is going to be hiring people, right? And turnover. So people that can keep people and keeping healthy employees means less
Mm,
turnover, right?
yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
other area. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So there's a couple, yeah, there's so MDs who are forward thinking and folks in the medical and health
Right.
fields that
Right.
really, and especially trying to work with kids and find a way to do that. And
Yeah.
then working with women who are, perimenopause and menopause.
40
And
plus.
then
That's what
40
we say.
plus.
40
Yeah, that's
plus.
right.
There you
That's
go.
Yeah.
right. And then the last was businesses, right? Where that there's different health programs and employee benefits. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And then how do they contact you? What's the best way to link up?
So you can on a website, it's on the web, it's metafitrx.com. On LinkedIn, on Facebook, and Instagram, it's all at MetafitRX is our handle. So if you
Cool.
just type
Easy.
MetafitRX on all of them, yeah, it's pretty easy on all of them. And we do free discovery calls to help people understand what we do and what makes the most sense for them. And
Yeah.
it's a process. We spend a lot of time educating people on what we do to help them understand how it can help them. And if they don't feel that way, it's okay. We very much just present the info because we look for people to voluntarily come in. We never want someone to come in that I had to convince. It's not, we want it to be a good experience for both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's got to be a good fit, especially since you do work pretty intimately in like
Right.
lifestyle and
You
behaviors
get
and
right. You get a lot of private information about somebody, and you want someone who's come in because they want to learn and want to know and do better, not because their wife made them or something. Like
yeah.
it's
We've had that happen. It's not
Yeah.
Not
fun.
that, yeah, exactly.
and people do come they come around, but it can make for a
It's
rather
hard.
uncomfortable part. Yeah, you have to convince them, and they're like, "Oh, this is amazing," but
Yeah.
yeah,
Again, experienced the same thing in coaching that people are like, well,
yeah,
I'll give it a shot, but I don't know. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
like therapy.
Right.
Yeah, let's
Right.
go to
Oh, yeah.
therapy.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Anyway,
Like,
well,
like,
this is fantastic. I mean, I love what you guys are doing. I do really feel passionate about, some of the things we talked about. And so it's a real pleasure for me to talk with you guys and really appreciate you coming on. So,
no, thanks,
Yeah.
Colin.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
for having
us.
us. Yeah, appreciate the invite.
yeah.